So just make yourself comfortable. It's something I've been thinking about. I'll just talk about for a few moments as we open, since I do. I have been certainly getting the feedback from many different places of how how much really is going on in our individual and our collective lives, and it just seems like there's um, an energy that we are all feeling, yeah, and it's being expressed in many different ways. So one of the things that the participation in the study of and just the opening of yoga offers us, it offers us an opportunity to become very, very clear. And from that place of clarity, to really be able to trust life. Life as the teacher. I've been saying this a lot lately because I've been really experimenting with it and studying it in my own life and my own practice. And one of the things that I want to assure you of, and I'm just assuring you this from my personal experience, is that we can depend on our sense of integrity and our sense of intuition. That, I believe, is really built into the fabric of who we are. And oftentimes, I believe we hesitate to fully trust that, and we have to extend ourselves into the world in a way that it can be rather limited or is based on secondhand information, any number of things, before we're really willing to just let go and trust life. So what I'm proposing is to just trust, to just know that we will move from a place of integrity and intuition, and that we can just trust that life will guide us, that life will teach us, that the intelligence of life is inherent within it. And then it will give us feedback. And if we're not listening and we're not developing sensitivity and we're not slowing down, then often that feedback of life can be rather harsh. It can almost use a blunt instrument on us. And some of us know that experience. But if we are listening and we are developing sensitivity and we are slowing down, then life has a tendency to be more gentle. But the entirety of life is really what's teaching us, is really what's guiding us. So what I've been really playing with, if you will, is just to do what I want to do, just to do what it is that is arising, is I'm being called to do, is to follow. I hesitate to call it a deeper calling, but maybe a more natural calling. Whatever I feel the presence of life is wanting from me, that's what I'm willing to open up to and trust that I will move with integrity, that I will move with kindness, and I will move from intuition. And then if life wants to make a correction, then I will feel that and I will be guided accordingly. So this entire practice that I'm talking about not only leads to clarity, but also comes from clarity. And so this is why we put specific time aside to sit with our practice. And we sit with our practice to be able to listen to ourselves at the level of this clarity, at the level of this integrity, and at the level of this intuition, and just open to and trust this enormity and this mysteriousness of life itself. So let's just begin by just sitting quietly with the mystery that life is. And now the inquiry of yoga. And just one more thing I'll add to this, that um, the self-realization part of this is really quite beautiful, because as we begin to mature and trust and just see that this integrity and this intuition is a natural part of the fabric of our being, that at some point this intelligence starts to starts to morph into wisdom, and this morphing and this maturing is often the realization that, with all of this being said, with all of this sort of letting go and trusting and appreciating life as the primary teacher, is that we never know what's around the corner. So as much as we can, sit with ourselves, and we can, open to our, our internal teacher, and think sometimes we have all the bases covered and things are unfolding in a certain way, the humility and often the sort of the demarcation between the intelligence that's guiding us and true wisdom is really knowing that we do not know ever really what's around the corner. And this, I think, is also, part of the mystery. So I invite you to explore this. A yoga asana is always an opportunity to not only allow the physical body to rest and to ease into the sensations as they arise, but to just check in as much vastness as we possibly can, and how we feel about that, how we feel about our capacity to take care of ourselves, and to really hold our maturity and our intelligence in a certain place, but also hold that humility that we don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to unfold. And this can sometimes be frightening, but it can also be very liberating and freeing. And ultimately, that's what we, no matter what we call our practice, spiritual practice, yoga practice, to me, the guide, the gauge of how we're doing is, are we feeling a sense of freedom? And so that freedom has to take into account that we don't know what's right around the corner, and to be okay with that, and really to celebrate that. I think that's a good thing. Okay, so enough of this. Let's begin to move a little bit. And let's take out your small bolster and or the equivalent of that, which for some of you would be a blanket folded up. So either way, they're both going to work fine. I just want to have a little support. So either a blanket folded up or your small bolster. And let's extend the right leg out. And just something a little different to begin this forward bend is I want to put the small bolster or the blanket so we can place the left foot on top of it. So this is just a modified half butterfly pose. We often do this without this modification, but this is a lovely modification. So we're just resting the left foot on some height, doesn't need to be too high, and the right leg is extended out. And if you can see, my foot is completely surrendered to the relaxation in my right hip. There's no holding it in any way to manipulate an alignment. The alignment is relaxation. That's the alignment. And then coming forward, nice and gently, if you're having some lower back resistance or challenges or tightness, whatever you're feeling in that lower back, really relax it. Go very slowly. If you feel like the upper body weight is going to take you too deep too quickly, bring something else in, a big bolster or another pillow, and just relax the torso so you can relax the weight of the head. Often if the torso is holding weight and the lower back is a little tentative, that will translate up into the neck and the shoulders. Ideally, we'd like the neck and the shoulders to be just as relaxed as possible. And then just sink into the pose, and we'll just spend some time here. And keeping in mind that this freedom, this inner sense of freedom, is going to be different for everyone. And certainly, I'm not talking about sort of an ideological freedom or even a cultural freedom. I'm really talking about just a sense of being with your body and your mind with a sense of freedom. And so this is different for everyone. And this is beyond philosophy. This is beyond metaphysics. It's beyond philosophy. It's really just a feeling that we have that we're free. You know, our birthright of freedom to move through the world and to experience the environment. So try not to place a label or a definition on this. And this is the power really of clarity. The power of clarity is life will let you know. It has a way of letting you know. And this is what we are really cultivating in this practice, is how to start to rename, if you will, to reframe the challenges and the difficulties and the pain, not as something to be pushed away or ignored, but that this is in a way life letting us know. Whether this is, you know, just organic from the body, or this is a felt sense in the breath, it's a confusion in the mind, or just how our environment is showing up for us. Life will let us know, and the more clarity we have, the more we're available to that intelligence. In a way, you might say that the challenges are the intelligence. And when I really take that in, and when I really meditate on that, it just wants to make me weep for joy, because it's such a deep and a beautiful thing to start to accept. And this is part of the freedom. So at this point, the only problem is that we think there's a problem. There are no problems, because the problems, the pain, the challenges are the intelligence. And then the art and the skill and the yoga is how to simply be with that. And then we're free. Good. So let's come on up from here, just kind of easing into this forward bend. We'll just break it up a little bit. So come on up, and you can take that support away for a moment. And let's just adjust this left leg and put it up and over the right leg that we had extended out, and just gently tug the left foot back towards the hip. So you don't need to force it, certainly. And then maybe that small bolster or bigger bolster or a pillow have onto the right side. Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to just come forward first and just be here for a bit. So let the lumbar and the back line adjust to this a bit. And then once you feel adjusted to this, you can stay here a little longer if you'd like, but the invitation is to just gently kind of swerve over to the right here. So this is why I invited the bolster over here, so you can rest the arms on the bolster. Again, let the head just relax, kind of sink in. So we have a nice, forward sitting twist here, and we'll relax into this for a bit. And make sure you're not pushing into the twist at all. So there's no bracing or holding. So we're just allowing the natural weight of the upper torso to draw you into the twist. So sometimes backing off a little bit, or keeping the head down and letting the upper body sway a bit, it radiates into different areas that might be resisting or contracting. So we want to be aware of that. We never want to feel the practice is static and we're just holding till it's over, and uh, you know, in a way enhancing or encouraging the tightness. We just want to feel loose about it. We want to make sure that the body is able to relax as much as possible within the larger context of the contractions. They're very, very intuitive. So, trust that, that innate intuition. So if you are off to the right a bit here, let's just, before you come up, let's bring the upper body back to a nice a straight spine, shoulders and hips. Relax the head down, just sort of sink in here. And then let's roll up from here. And let's take that left leg and put it right back where it was on the inside of the right leg, but without the support this time. So we had that that left foot elevated with the bolstering. Let's just put it on the floor and come forward. And of course, anytime you need support under this left thigh or the left knee, if it's going to be a little intense for the left hip, always kind of play with that. It's nice to have something nearby, especially as the time ticks on, it may get a little sensitive. You can always support it in any way that you need to. And then again, just a nice relaxed forward bend. And be subtle and be sensitive with the experience itself. So very often we can feel something, maybe we'll label it painful or restricted, and the experience gets very one-pointed. And so that's one way to experience the body. but also notice that experience itself has the ability to expand. And so certainly be interested in the core or bringing yourself into the center of an experience of sensation in the body, but also let it open out a bit. See what's at the periphery. See if you can find any kind of boundary between what you believe is a point, a particle of sensation, and what are the waves that radiate out from that. And I'll just say a little bit more about that when we switch positions, but this idea between intensity or density of sensation and the feeling and how it reverberates out through the body. And of course, believe it or not, has a great deal to do with the fascia of the body. But let's come on up here so I don't chatter away and we stay here for another 3 minutes. So just come on up from here and let's try to remember that we've kept the right foot out for this, and you can extend the left foot out. And then we're going to come back before we do the other side of that. So two things you're going to need. One is a roll. So I made a nice roll here with just a towel, and this will work fine, knowing that if the lumbar is reacting to this where it's too much, you can certainly unroll it. Yeah, so that goes without saying. We want to have the depth always appropriate, the sensation always appropriate. Then if you have the small bolster, then we're going to put the bolster over one end of it, not halfway, but just so one end of the bolster is touching the floor, and this will represent where the lumbar spine will relax into. If you don't happen to have the small bolster, then I took a blanket and I folded it so we could do the same thing. But again, we want the end of the blanket on the floor, so we'll sit on the floor and then we'll let the lumbar curve mold into this here. If the blanket is kind of short, you might want something for your head. The head can either be on the end of the small bolster or the end of the blanket. So what we would do then, once you have this all set up, I'll just try it with the blanket. I didn't try this earlier. I used my bolster. But make sure you're sitting on the floor with your feet on the floor. And if the blanket's going to slide, the towel's going to slide, tuck it in. And just pretty much come to the forearms, and you can see how the lower back is responding. If it feels safe, we'll bring the upper body down. Yeah, good. And then we'll let the legs relax out. And if you need something for your head, please do that, because this can be interesting. And I want to be able to stay here for an amount of time that you can just really drift away from the intensity and let that lumbar area relax. So the more the lumbar area can relax, the more it can receive the compression. And this is the balance that we want. So please don't hesitate to take that roll down a few rolls and then have either the blanket. So when we're using all these different props, it's hard to be exact for you. It depends on how you're feeling. And then just over it, support the head, let the legs relax out. But do keep the buttocks on the floor for the most part. And that's just something to keep in mind. If your body is tensing up, if it's going into a defensive mode, the fascia is not going to receive the compression. The fascia is going to hold that tension because it's protective as well as connective. So the individual balance is to, over time, and this is why we hold it for time, over time to relax, so that compression can then just intuitively seep into the body. We're not mechanically trying to wrench the alignment and push to release. The release happens as a natural receiving of the compression. So allow your body to relax in such a way that it can just gently receive this compression. There's no need to force or to push or to pull. because really, any pushing or pulling on the pain, the discomfort, tends to solidify it. So leave it alone. We don't want to push or pull it. We don't want to disturb it. We want to just let go of it and just find where the body can flow. So your energy can flow through, in, around, approach. And I think this is the same way when we come to problems. I think this is what I was trying to say earlier. If pain or problems, we do not need to push or pull because it only makes them more real. It only solidifies them. We want to find a way that we can intelligently listen and just let things flow. This really is yoga. Yoga is flow. Flow is yoga. One of the primary ways that we not only encourage flow, but we inquire as to the, let's just say, the quality of flow is certainly with our breathing. So once we have started to relax, once we have accepted the receptivity of the compression, always lovely to check in with our breathing to see if it feels a little stuck or blocked, if it feels a little habitual in any part of the body, or can we relax the breath? Can we extend the exhale so it lets the lower belly relax? Can we inhale so there's a bit of feeling in the lungs? We want to feel the lungs. We want a little bit of expansion. We want that inhalation to, make a little bit more space. And we want the exhalation to allow the respiratory diaphragm to flow upward and massage the heart. So we can be very specific with our breathing in this practice. We can be deliberate, or we can just feel it as a, let's say, a representative of how we're feeling at the level of flow. And this idea of flow, ties into what I was saying earlier about being able to recognize the sensations you're feeling as specific points or particles or more vibratory and waves. So the experience of what you're actually feeling can expand. You can see if your sensory experience really does have any boundaries. But to move this into the idea of the fascia, I was talking about the fascia, and there's, as you know, so many ways to really approach this incredible connective system, but that it's on some level, it is a fiber optic network. Yeah, so this is the quantum level where the light of the body, the bioelectricity of the body, the prana of the body is moving through the body. So I'm talking about connectivity at the level of light in your body. And so with this in mind, what we start to explore And this is our primary aliveness. This is as primary as primary as we can be with our aliveness, this fiber optic network. So at this level, there's as much aliveness in the kidney as there is in the toe, as much aliveness in the intestines as there is in the spleen, as much aliveness in the neural network of the brain as there is in the joints of the legs. So there's no hierarchy of aliveness. There may be hierarchy of density, there may be hierarchy of contraction or openness, but at the level of the network that is fiber optic within the body, there's no hierarchy of aliveness. So this density that we feel, these points of discomfort, yes, certainly, the fiber optic network gets a bit compromised. It gets a little sluggish. It gets blocked a bit. So we don't need to bring our full focus to that. We need to feel like it's part of a continuum. And we relax into this continuum that is really this body of light. So we have a body of light, and we have a body that's emotional. We have a body that's intellectual. We have a body that's physical. And we just take this metaphor and allow ourselves to relax inward. We drop all of those labels and just start to feel that if we are really honest with ourselves, we cannot find this flow. We cannot really find this aliveness, but certainly we can feel it. We can feel it as it's expressing itself in just a tremendous variety of ways. And then if this fiber optic network becomes compromised in some way, the body itself, the intelligence of this light, will give you a signal. And the sensitivity and the clarity is being able to listen to this signal, and the sooner the better. So we can listen to these signals from the body at a very, very refined, subtle level. We're able to make the adjustments much earlier. Like I said, the life will give us the guidance, and sometimes with a blunt instrument, and sometimes with a tremendous sensitivity. So I've said this for, in many, many classes, that first and foremost, this is a practice of listening, of flirting with your edges, of feeling your flow, and listening to the way your own process is revealing itself. So let's begin to just breathe a little bit deeper into the lumbar area. So this is movement to start to encourage release. So take an inhale breath and just let the breath naturally arch the lumbar up a bit, this micro movement. Let the exhale relax it. Just do this for a few times. And this is so lovely to keep cultivating this sense of subtlety with the body and this relationship between the breath and the micro movements, the external and internal rotation of the bones when we're breathing. So just a little movement just with the breath at first, and you can maybe sway the hips and put the feet firmly on the floor, and then any intuitive movement, just go nice and slow. So this movement of release and transition, these sensations of transition as well, just as important to stay connected to as when we're relaxing in the pose. And then when you feel ready, with the feet on the floor, you can roll off of this onto your side and bring your knees up. And let's just take a few moments here to rest. We're going to continue with the forward bend on the other side, but let's rest here for a bit. And what I was saying, earlier about no need to push or pull on this discomfort, that can be taken in many ways. One of the ways is oftentimes we have sensations and we immediately and often habitually start to invest those sensations with emotions or with an intellectual framework. So what we're attempting to do is just slow that process down. So we just allow the sensations to be as they are in sort of their raw state. And nothing wrong with investing emotions and our psychological framework on these sensations, but it's a different thing. It's when we want to explore something, when we want to explore something anatomically through the mind or explore something therapeutically through the heart. But there's also a place for just the physical flow of the body at the level of sensation. So how to kind of stay with that and let it flow, and don't push or pull it. Don't solidify it into an emotion or a thought. And this can be very interesting because the internal guidance of the body has another option. We're not diagnosing it to fix it. We're not morphing it into an emotion to play with it, and I don't mean in a frivolous way, I mean to explore it therapeutically, but we're actually letting the intelligence of the body have some space to see what this sensation as a sensation is. It's quite fascinating. It can take us into some, very interesting somatic places. Good, so let's come on up now and let's take the left leg and extend it out. And if you remember, I was using, I used the bolster the last time. So we're just gonna use something to put that right foot on this time. So we're just extending it. So I folded my blanket here, left leg nice and relaxed. Right foot on something. So we're elevating that femur, nice relaxed forward bend. And just feel it. Just don't push it, don't pull it. Let it all relax. What it looks like, not relevant. How deep you go, not relevant. And how it feels, relevant. the reality of this practice really is that we just want to gently hang out with the body. It's very interesting is that here's a hatha yoga practice where we're using the body and we're putting it into these positions and we're feeling all these sensations, but yet it's not the essence. It's not what's primary. We're simply gently hanging out with the body and attempting to establish ourselves as this open space of awareness. And then the relationship to the physicality, to the emotions, to the psychology has the freedom to shift and to change. I'm not sure if that made any sense, but luckily I'm not committed to making sense. So do with it as you will. Allow the open space of awareness to let all of it arise, making sense or not making sense, feeling tight, feeling open, feeling happy, feeling sad. The awareness is spacious and infinite and able to hold all of your experience and able to allow it to coalesce and to come into particle and allow it to relax back into wave. So the meditation of our yoga is that at some point we start to experience, kinesthetically that we're everything and at the same time we're nothing. Good. So again, let's come on up and we'll just shift it, take the same forward bend, we'll just shift it a little bit. So you can remove whatever you were using to elevate that right foot. And then we'll just take that right foot and just gently cross it over the left, tug that foot back towards the hip a bit, but again, don't force it. Make sure you haven't, changed the tension in this left leg. So, to keep that left hip relaxed is really a good thing. And then the bolstering, whatever you're using, obviously will go on the left side this time. So we'll come forward first, relax into this, and then stay forward for a bit. And if and when you're ready, you may just enjoy forward, that's fine. Or if you'd like to come into a little bit of a twist left, that's good as well. And, I'm really been, in my own practice for a while now, I've really been attempting to keep it as experiential as possible. So when I say to establish yourself as the open space of awareness, this is not something we want to take as, a faraway study that we have to go up into the caves of the Himalayas and have a guru and it will finally dawn on us what this is, or study the scriptures for years and then we come to this magical state. It's not mystical. It's as simple as noticing that you are thinking, that you have imagery that is arising and fading, you are feeling the way that sensations morph and the way that they shift and change and the way that your history manifests as emotion. You are feeling something. And at the level of sensations are also arising and fading. So body, mind, and heart are present. What are they present in? What is the container that they're present in? So what yoga is suggesting is they are present in, they are arising in awareness, open spaciousness of awareness, consciousness. And then they are fading. They are appearing and they are disappearing. So we go to this experientially. We don't just hold this as a theory and hope someday we get it. There's nothing to get. You are aware of these, of body, of mind, of feeling, of perceptions in this moment. And this is what we get to explore. And I do think it's important. It's important to allow this to be directly experiential and not secondhand. So again, if you are twisted a bit to the left here, let's straighten out before we come up. So just bring your body straight and let the head relax down even more here. Feel the entire articulation of the spine. And then let's restack the spine as we're coming up. Just roll up. And we'll take that right leg and just stretch it out for a moment. Maybe sway the hips a bit. And we'll keep the left leg out. We'll put that right foot somewhere. So same where, no, the left leg, yeah. No. Oh yeah, because we have this over. So yeah, we'll put the right leg on the inside of the left leg and then we'll come forward. So we're just doing it without that support and just relax the body down. In a way, we think of this, connective tissue, this fascia, almost like an internal fishnet. It's amazing, really. It's wondrous. It's this microscopic, these hollow, transparent, fluid-filled tubes that literally connect everything within us. So it's not just this light, this fiber optic light. It's also blood, lymph, information. So this is what I was, referring to earlier in terms of the aliveness of the body, whether it's lymph or blood or light or information, is moving, without boundary, really. And so it morphs into a liver or a kidney or a brain. But at the level of the vibrancy of the prana, the life force, it's everywhere. So it then becomes just a natural continuation. If this system gets clogged up, if it gets compromised, if it's overly contracted, we cannot feel as alive. We cannot feel the joy of being alive. And so this is the guide that we use. I mentioned earlier freedom, the freedom to feel the joy of being alive, the freedom to feel the flow of being in a human body. So the practice certainly has elements of being anatomical and mechanical, but deeper than that, the practice is to release anything that is blocking our sense of ourselves as feeling joyous and free and alive and compassionate. So let's come on up and we can straighten out that leg and let's lie down and take a rest. So just make yourself comfortable. We'll take a little longer rest here before we move on. I mentioned the other day in class the importance when we start to become conscious that we're, holding ourselves to a practice or a path, or just, wanting to consciously live our lives. That there are times when that it's good to be radical and to sort of push the edges, but also times when it's good to be gentle. And I've been thinking more and more, it's interesting with things opening up a bit and the sort of the collective anxiety that is still, has certainly embedded itself within our collective psyche, that we try to remember that. And this is, to put it more clearly, this is the practice of pendulation. To know, thinking of a pendulum, how it only goes so far to an extreme before it goes back to the other extreme. And so good, I think, to feel deeply, to feel that something certainly in this human collective is dying. And that can be fearful, and that can cause anxiety. And to be able to feel that as directly and as deeply as we're able to, but also then to allow the pendulum to go to the place of lightness, to see all of the beauty and the connection and the love and the hope that's in the world, and the laughter and the lightness. And this is certainly apparent in our breathing. What a direct metaphor for pendulation than what's a better metaphor than our breathing. That we inhale, and at first it just feels so amazing, and it's our life, and it's filling us, but it gets to a point where it becomes uncomfortable, and we don't keep inhaling. We let it go, and we exhale, and that feels just as good, and release and letting go and openness. But if we don't keep exhaling, we then go back to the inhale. So, whether this is at the level of, masculine and feminine within us, or our process of awakening, our breathing, our emotions, our relationship to living and dying, to really cultivate an understanding and a practice of pendulation is very, very powerful. And it brings us into a sense of personal balance, when to laugh, when to cry. And I do believe if we have that balance, we make ourselves available to laughing and crying, often at the same time, which is often very appropriate. And certainly, part of this, what I'm saying is really the art of being with our energy as it is. So this is foundational, feeling our energy, feeling these sensations, and then taking some time, between the stimulus. Something stimulates us. The stimulation is the, evoking of the energy. And there's a gap between when we have to respond to that, when we have to then, okay, there's an emotional response, there's an intellectual response, there's whatever it happens to be. So the art is to stay with the energy as it is, and then see if you have more options before it starts to morph into something that you want to explore or not explore. Okay, so let's come on up. Let's bring the pendulums up. And if you do have a big bolster, I'm going to just show it both ways. The big bolster, or make something that is a nice, solid block with a blanket, like a pad. So we won't use a block because I don't know who has blocks, but I've made this pad about the equal height of the bolster. Pretty much it's going to have the same effect. Maybe just the placement will be a little bit different. So I'll just show it with both options. So if you do have the large bolster, then what we'll do is we will take it from the pelvis to the shoulders and sit on one end of it. So sitting on one end of it, and then allowing the body to relax over it, come to the forearms, and just tuck the other end of the bolster right either between or below the scapula. You'll find the spot, and then let your head relax on the floor, the back of the head. So what I often do is, once I start to feel this spot, and if you want it to stay here is great, open the legs. And so the back of the head is on the floor, but the shoulders are not, as you can see. This is a good place to be. If you want to go a little bit deeper and open that thoracic cage, just kind of squiggle down till the shoulders come on. So this takes me below shoulder blades, really sort of a little below the mid part of the thoracic spine, maybe upper lumbar a bit. And then my shoulders are on the floor. It's just more expansive for my chest. So two options there with this big bolster. Okay. If you're going to use this pad or a combination of this pad, it works in different ways. Basically the same thing. Feet on the floor, settle in, get on it here. With this though, however, you may need, there's a lot, maybe too much arch in the upper spine. So you may want to have some padding back there. But the same thing, I just kind of find that spot that's expansive for the chest, come over it. Yeah, this is perfect. And maybe I want something a little bit under my head and then let the legs relax out. And again, finding the depth that will allow you to just, move into this awareness that as you slow down, as you slow the breath, as the body starts to relax, obviously the brain waves are slowing as well. The heartbeat is slowing as well. So we have the opportunity to enter into a less wakeful state. So we're not fully awake. We're not deep sleep, but we're in this hypnagogic in-between state. And this is very, very much a gentle receptivity so the body can receive this compression. Although if you go into a deep sleep, that's fine too. It happens. Falling asleep in a yin pose is not failure. Quite the contrary. It means that your body is responding and feels very safe. And oftentimes this can be tremendously therapeutic to intentionally set the compression up so your body can deepen into these different brain waves and possibly go into a place of sleep, this in-between place that, if anyone that is aware of this young teacher, Bentinho Massaro, he talks about this at length in terms of parallel worlds and what's happening in our psyche when we come into these different brainwaves. But I won't, don't get me started on that, please. Let's just relax. And certainly, especially in this position, be open to exploring a bit of discomfort at the end of the inhale and the end of the exhale. Very, very interesting place. How and when the inhale gets uncomfortable and how that feels. What are you really leaning into? Is there a habit there of breathing that is able to evoke something? And the same thing with the exhalation. Really exploring what that completion of the exhale really feels like, especially in the area below the navel and a bit above the pubic bone. This is a very yin area to relax in and to open space there with the exhale breath. And part of this, cultivating, our individual sense of pendulation is often it takes de-emphasizing the need to be assessing ourselves all the time. So the assessments themselves, it can turn into a preoccupation. And sometimes, yes, the pendulum goes to a place where you certainly want to assess things, but to have the choice to just feel yourself as you are, the direct connection with your experience. This is why it can be very valuable. Part of the art of yoga is being able to discern between abstraction and what's actually happening, actuality, direct experience. And often the compulsive need to assess ourselves blocks that discernment. Yeah, certainly, oftentimes we want abstraction. We want to be creative. We want to have flights of fantasy and imagination. It's a beautiful part of being human, but we don't want it to turn into a soul reality. We want to also be able to come into directness. How am I right now? And part of that is having an acceptance of that. How am I feeling right now? It's perfectly okay. And let me be with that and let me honor that. This is the fabric of the body expressing itself, and it's fine. I don't need to assess it. I don't need to overlay, interweave abstraction into it. I can just be with it as it is. This is really the art of yoga, to make that discernment. Am I abstracting right now, or am I in direct experience? And I say it's an art because it's not, I'm maybe simplifying it, but it's not as easy as it sounds, because oftentimes we will immediately take direct experience and overlay abstraction onto it. So be careful in what your mind is doing. It's very tricky. Your mind is very creative, powerful, tricky, and can be very problematic as well. And if you're thinking right now, well, what does he mean by abstraction? And I wonder that's abstraction. That's the capacity of your mind to take anything and get involved with it. Direct experience, cannot put language to it. We don't put concept to it. We just simply feel it. We sink into this, juicy, visceral place of feeling, this raw sense of the body vibrating, the tingliness of it, the below the surface, the movement of the fiber optic network that we call fascia. these constant interpretations that we almost instantly overlay onto experience, these become somewhat hypnotizing. We actually start to believe that our interpretations are true. So a good thing to contemplate is to just start to put maybe in front of everything that you feel or think, and let yourself have more space. That possibly your interpretation is only one perspective, and that there's a spectrum of perspectives if you give yourself more options. So interpretations are hypnotizing, or can be. So once again, let's come into your breathing as we did with the lumbar area earlier. We're just deepening it just enough to feel micro movement in the body, just to feel this subtle connection between breath and movement. So the inhalation opening up that rib cage a bit, the mid-spine a bit. The exhalation, again, relaxing the diaphragm up towards the heart. And then one more thing with the breathing, since we have the chest open, I'd like you to bring a few breaths into your throat and directly feel the energy of the throat itself. And it's very, very easy. It's very habitual to stay at the surface of the throat. This area of the body has a tremendous depth. So allow a certain relaxation, just deeper in to see what one's feeling. Oftentimes any contraction here, it can be a blockage energetically, but also physically between the upper area, the sinus nasal passages, and the upper part of the chest and the heart. So take some time into the throat, valuable. And then with the mouth closed, breathing only through the nostrils, just feel into this area of the nasal passages, just a nice gentle breath, and feel any movement, any expansion, any energy. Again, this is a labyrinth, complicated area that very seldom do we take the time to bring direct attention to. Nasal passages, sinus passages, the back of the palate. Sensitivity, subtlety, and however subtle you're exploring, go subtler. Let yourself really feel what this quality energy of subtlety is, and allow yourself to relax into it. Relaxation, subtlety, resting, softness, these are all the same thing. And then let's put the feet on the floor once again. And then any movement, please take your time. Knees back and forth maybe, knees up towards the chest, just a little swaying of the hips, a little head back and forth. And whenever you feel ready, we'll just come off of this and roll to the side. And again, we'll take a longer rest here. So make yourself comfortable to rest, and we will do that. And I was saying earlier just how, life will give us signals when we really trust our integrity and our intuition. The physical body will give us signals. We go in too deep, we're not paying attention, on and on, really. And this is the same thing with freedom. So I'm really sort of emphasizing in a general way this felt sense of freedom. I'm intentionally not being specific with it, but the same thing, this is a signal. So when we begin in any area, psychologically or emotionally, physically, environmentally, we start feeling less free. This is just simply a signal to just back away from that and evaluate what do I need to do? What is not working? What do I need to let go of, readjust, meditate on, contemplate, so I can come back into my innate sense, my natural state of freedom. So it's not an either or, it's an exploration of taking these signals, taking the signals from life itself, from the environment. We sit in the sun too long, we start to sweat and burn. It's a signal to get out of the sun, obviously. On and on. And I don't need to give examples, but the idea, the concept, the energy of freedom can be a little more vague because we tend to superimpose ideals on what we think freedom is. What I'm suggesting is it's a deep interpersonal, intimate experience. And so we can remove the framework, we can remove the cultural and the historical ideas we have about freedom and start to feel it directly. And once we do, it becomes a very powerful signal because we know when we're moving towards it, when we're moving away from it. And then this becomes a lovely contemplation to just sit with our own sense of innate freedom. And these are tricky things to talk about, tricky things to talk about: freedom, awakening, awareness, because the implication then when we talk about them is it's something that we maybe are lacking and we need to go find. We need to read another book or have another teacher or do another practice or sit a little bit longer or do more yoga. This is simply not the case. The case is these are within us. This is the way we are alive. This is the connection of our cells and our organs and our brain and our fascia that not only it connects us to everything, but the vibration of our fascia is in connection to the whole environment. So this is really what the yoga is saying, is take a break from going to find something, whether it's enlightenment or worthiness, because the looking for it is the telling of oneself we don't have it, and slow down enough and relax enough to see that indeed you already have it. So we don't block the journey by telling ourselves we need to go look for it. We take the journey inward and say, and when I relax, when I let go of the blockages, whether it's anxiety or fear or habit or trauma, I can see what I'm really made of. I can see this aliveness and this freedom and ultimately this unconditional love that I am. So tricky to talk about in that way. And that's really when we start to mature and our practice matures. That's the humility I was talking about. And then we're prepared for what's around the corner because we understand what we are. This is the fundamental question of yoga, is what I am, who am I? So let's come on up, please, if you will. And I want to come into the sleeping swan for a bit, just because it's so juicy for the hips. And I do understand that this is, a pose that is not easy for everyone. So I'm going to just show you a few ways to support it. If you know the pose and you want to come into it, what we'll do is we'll just start with the right leg in front. And I usually start with it being at about 90 degrees to my body. And then you can bring the foot in some, and this will take pressure off the knee. So the angling of the leg is more about pressure on the knee. If you bring it forward some, it's going to be more pressure on the knee. So be careful with your knees. And then the back leg, be careful not to attempt to fully straighten it and press this left hip down. Some practices, yes, that's an anatomical alignment requirement, but we want that left hip relaxed so the knee can bend a little bit. And then we simply come forward over it. So the support for this too would be, one, bring as much support forward if you need, so you can relax on the bolster if you need that. The second one would be to take something smaller, a blanket, and put that right buttocks on it. So this will elevate, even out the hips instead of that sort of torquing to the right, and you could do that. If you need nothing, then just kind of wiggle your way into it and then just relax. Bring the whole upper body down if you can. And if you get to a point where this is just totally awkward, you don't like it, you're wiggling and wobbling and you wish this wasn't happening, instead of struggling with it, just roll over onto your back and then take that right foot and put it below the left knee and just bring that left leg up. And you can reach under the right calf, interlock the fingers behind the right knee. This is an eye of a needle, and you can just kind of play with that area, same area we're targeting with the sleeping swan, but doesn't have all the awkwardness of the compression. So, and even if you're halfway through and you've had enough of the swan, or maybe the swan is just perfect and you're not going to wiggle and wobble. So just let the wiggling and the wobbling relax and soften, and we'll see what happens. What? And again, coming back to whatever it is you're currently exploring or contemplating, we want it to be experiential. We don't want it to be theoretical. So if we're feeling as if we're, not worthy, not awakened, not free, whatever it happens to be, instead of pursuing that on some level, instead of feeling like we need to improve, we need to become more worthy, we just take this contemplation in that possibly that movement towards is a reaffirming that I'm already not. So we let that go for a while. We just loosen that up. It's just energy. It's just thought. It's just a habit of the mind and the heart. And then we just sit with what is. So then we just sit with our worthiness. We sit with our freedom. We sit with our self as simply awakened, and see how that feels. And we get to explore that. And how interesting that this, this self-inquiry that yoga encourages is done from a place of genuine and deep relaxation. So it's not a doing, it's a not doing, it's a relaxation and allowing that integrity and that intuition and that innate intelligence to reveal itself as it will, without the necessary blockages of our habits, our mental and emotional habits. So let us come on up from here. And it's always nice to pass through the low back here. So it's always nice just to press your hands on the floor if you're able to. Straighten the elbows a bit, bring the chest up, maybe even the chin a bit, and just kind of rock a little bit and feel the sort of the curve of the lumbar, any compression there. Sometimes it's nice just to, even if you're just visualizing just the space between the vertebra and how that feels. And then let's bring that left leg around front and open the legs just out a bit, not hip width and not full straddle, just enough to really relax the hips. And from here, we'll come forward. So again, just use your bolstering to come to a place where you're not going to struggle, where you're not going to, put the body in defensive mode, where you can relax. And keep in mind with these forward bends, there's no requirement of depth or aesthetic. So if you're feeling limited in the lumbar and it's stiff, just relax the head down, relax the shoulders forward just a tiny bit. This indeed is a forward bend. And this gives your body the message that you're willing to be patient with it. You're not interested in aesthetic. You have no standard. You're not assessing yourself, but just as the body is. And then it'll start to guide you and start to relax. And this then becomes our yoga. And one of the reasons I bring this idea of the fascia as a fiber optic network is that oftentimes when we say physical, we think density right away. But the truth is, there is really no density. There is no physical. There's simply light, fluid, flow, vibration. So this idea we have, or this concept we have of physical being dense, physical being solid, yoga has known this is not true for thousands of years. We now have the technology to verify this. And this is why we draw our energy inward. We relax the concept, the self-image of the physical, dense body, and we just start to feel the openness that really is within us that we can't really locate. It's sort of taking a break from always having to locate ourselves, always having to hold the self-image and the way that the memories fire and trigger and create thought and anxiety and concern. It's a relaxation into really another world. We're just sort of floating in again, this open field of spaciousness, which ultimately we are. And then ideas of physicality, ideas of emotion, ideas of perception float in this awareness. Good. So let's come on up from here. And let's do the swan on the other side. So from here, you can simply bend that left leg in. And again, the angle will determine mostly compression on the knee. You can allow the right leg to relax back. And really, this is just relative to this rotation of the right hip. If you're able to just let the body relax over that left leg, this would be ideal. If you need some bolstering front or under the left buttocks, that would also be ideal. So just really let your skeleton and your muscles and your fascia really determine the depth and the position, and then just relax. part of this surrender to life itself being our primary teacher is a very simple recognition that what is doing your personality is the same thing that is doing the clouds. And when we really begin to trust this, we don't have to fully understand it, but when we lean into trusting this, it takes so much of the pressure off. We can let go of control and we can let go of outcome, thinking that outcome is going to determine something. We can let go of conditions. And we just see that this same energy, if you call it, the world, we're not really seeing the world, we're seeing light and energy, is doing everything. And we are always included in that. Never have we not been included in that.
So once again, let's ease up here, and you can place the palms on the floor in front. Gently start to straighten the elbows if you're able to, and just a little softening into the lower back. You can bring the chest up a bit, the chin up a bit, just a little sway, just a little passive motion. And then let's bring that right leg around front once again. And instead of extending, let's bring the soles of the feet together at just a nice comfortable distance from the body so we're not tightening the hips, and relax into a forward bend here. So just a nice gentle softening into the lumbar area. And when we do begin to start to experience ourselves as this open awareness in this field of spaciousness, just an
infinite consciousness when we do, and it's very close to us because this is what we are. So when we do begin to start to experience this, if you will, then the yoga is to simply let that permeate into the body. So we start to let go of the separation of body and consciousness, or body and awareness, or mind and awareness. And this is the yoga. The yoga is that felt sense, that simple recognition that there are no separations. Yoga is no separation. Yoga is non-dual. We have to work hard to maintain these separations. Sometimes they're very valuable, but the yoga is really taking a rest from that. Good. So let's come on up from here. And either or here, if you will, either put the bolster or a stack of blankets or pillows behind you so you can put the arms on them. We'll just straighten the elbows and rest the arms if you want to support them, or you could just interlock the fingers behind the back and just bring the arms up and hold them with some arm strength. So either way, I just want to open the very top of the chest and the shoulders a bit. So sometimes it's nice to not let them rest because you can keep pressing up. Sometimes it's great just to let them rest at an appropriate height back here. If I was going to put them on the big bolster, just to support the muscular strength, so you're not having to put them up because the muscles obviously will fatigue. So your choice, either one, just to, again, open the shoulder girdle a bit. So just establish that first. And this is a lovely little thing for the neck that if you do this consistently, you can really open up any of those, those pesky little neck things that most of us have. So what I would like to do is first just bring the chin so it's parallel to the floor. So the upper spine is relatively straight, although it's not really straight. And then let's bring keeping the bottom of the chin parallel to the floor, bring the left ear to the left shoulder. So this is the first part of it. And just let it relax. Don't force this at all. Just the weight of the head will bring you down. And then very subtly, bring the chin up towards the ceiling, or if you're outside, towards the sky. You're angling, you're twisting a bit, and just hold this. But don't hold this in a way that the muscular tension is a bit intense or you're feeling unsafe. But again, just so you're easing into any tension that might be there. Just kind of play with that. So the chin can come back down a little bit, it can go back up. So left ear is towards left shoulder, chin is angling up a bit, and let's just hold this for a bit. If you notice that your teeth have clenched together, relax them apart, let the jaw relax. Try to even out the length of the inhale and the exhale so the breath can slow and relax. You can even, as the chin is going up to the ceiling, can even bring the head back a little bit. It tends to fall forward. So just interesting range of motion here. The complexity of the way tension is held in this area is really beyond description, I think, in many ways. And then let's bring the chin down first, so it's back to where it'll be parallel. Bring the head back up. So now the neck is straight again. The chin is parallel to the floor. And just let the head roll a little bit gently and safely. And then let's bring the chin back to parallel to the floor. Let us bring the right ear to the right shoulder first. And we'll just explore here before we start to shear a bit. And then we'll bring the chin up towards the sky. Maybe the head back a little bit. You'll find the places and just kind of ease into them. And just visualize gentleness, visualize softness just saturating into this area. And if the chin starts to drop down a bit, you can pick it back up, right ear to right shoulder, maybe even head back a tiny bit. And then let's bring the chin down first. So we're not moving the neck with the twist. Then bring the head back up away from the right ear, right shoulder, straight spine. And then let's release the arms as well. And then have the head just intuitively kind of move wherever it would like to move. And then let's open the legs out and let's lie down and we'll come into our final rest. So just make yourself very comfortable. Let's take a bit of a rest here. And I read this poem, I think last week, and I got so many requests to who it was by and if they could get a copy of it. And it's just so appropriate for Shavasana, which is our final asana to explore impermanence. It's very beautiful, by Mary Elizabeth Fry, called "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep." So I thought I would read it again. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry, I am not there, I did not die. Touch the earth, honor the sky, bless the water. And namaste.